let's make some Ghraybeh or Syrian shortbread cookies. I have here softened ghee, so it's still solid, but it's soft, right? It's not melted, it's not liquid. If it's melted or liquid, you've gone too far. You need to go back and cool your ghee down again. Our next ingredient is just powdered sugar. Don't use granulated sugar, the one that's crystals. You'll end up with gritty cookies. We really need the powdered sugar so that our cookies are smooth and melt in your mouth. I've got my ghee and my powdered sugar in here. I'm gonna go ahead and let those cream together. And what I mean by that is I want it to get light and fluffy. If your paddle attachment has a spatula, that'd be great. Otherwise, you're gonna have to pause briefly and scrape down the sides with an actual spatula. All right, let's get to mixing. We can see here that this is kind of the result that we're looking for. The results, it's light, it's fluffy, and it's not melted into goop, right? You can see it's sort of holding its shape. This is exactly what we're looking for. We've incorporated a little bit of air into this mixture of ghee and sugar. And what that's gonna do is that's just gonna help make sure that our cookies cook evenly. And again, it just really helps with lightening them up a bit so that they're more melt in your mouth. So let's just pop this in the fridge for 5 minutes. We'll come back, add the flour, just until it barely gets incorporated. It's been about 5 minutes in the fridge, and it has, we can see it's still, you know, a cream, right? It's not solid. If it was solid, if you've gone too far, and it's not gonna work out. Okay, our flour's in. We just bring it back up and put it on a low speed. We're just trying to incorporate here the flour into the sugar. Take a look at that, right? Part of it has come together, but it's still quite crumbly and it's not cohesive. It's almost ready like this. It's almost good enough to form into different cookie shapes. So let's put this back on. Let's keep going. Pop, up and stir. The difference between this stage and the previous one is it was basically a minute, maybe 90 more seconds of mixing. Notice the sides of the bowl are clean. Everything has incorporated together. So now it's pretty much ready to work with. If I take a look at this, you can see, okay, maybe I can't work with it. So you can grab it and sort of, we're not really kneading it, we're just, okay, forming it into cohesive shape. Okay, so let's roll this out. Roll, roll, roll. Okay, and we're doing the same thing, just pieces, pieces, that's too big, pieces, pieces, pieces. And what we can do now, we'll do the same thing, we'll roll it out. It's just the palm of your hand, roll, roll, okay. Something like this, right? And we're gonna bring these ends in together like that, okay? Now where the seam is, we'll just take our pistachio and boop, right into the seam. Come on, come on, come on, come on. There we go. Right into the seam, okay? Let me show you the thumbprint one. You go into a ball like that, bring it down, grab a pistachio and press like that. There's your thumbprint with the pistachio. Let's see, how about that S shape? Here we go. Roll, roll, roll it out. I think okay, this one fell apart. Let's try it again. Okay, here we go, and S shape. Okay, so I think the S shapes traditionally don't have pistachios, but what you can do, grab one and you can hit the seam there. Grab another piece. Oops. And hit the seam there. So there you go. 3 different ways to add some pistachios to your Ghraybeh. This takes a while actually. The longest part is actually rolling out the cookies. And if you've never done this before, then it does end up taking a while. Especially because you're worried about temperature and things like that. Just grab our thing and press. There we go. Very easy to do the thumbprint cookies with the pistachio. So we're gonna go ahead and pop these into a 300-degree oven for about 9 to 10 minutes or so. All right, so I popped these out of the oven after 9 minutes. I just looking at it, I don't think they're quite done yet, and I'm gonna show you what I mean by that. Oh, careful. Okay, I don't think these are quite done yet. I'm gonna show you what I mean. If I touch it here with a fork, okay, you can see it's sort of, well, we'll just ruin one just to show you. I think it needs maybe 1 minute more in the oven. Yeah, I think it needs maybe just 1 minute, maybe 90 seconds. So they're almost done, but in my opinion, not quite, okay? I think it's still a little too unset, so we're gonna pop it in for another 60 seconds. Here's a little, I think this is better. If I touch this end, it's still a little bit soft, but this pan is still hot. It's gonna continue to cook and set. So we're gonna have to set this off to the side and leave it alone. Don't touch it. Don't be tempted to move the cookies, because as soon as you touch them, right, you can see I'm leaving an imprint on them, right? So we're just gonna set them outside, let them cool completely, about 10 minutes or so, and we'll get back to them. Alrighty, so here are what our Ghraybeh cookies look like. They've cooled enough for me to handle the pan. So here's that little cookie I pulled out and made indents on it with a fork. Notice I can now hold it completely, and it's not like, you know, it's not, whoops. They are fall apart, melt in your mouth, but it's not losing its form, right? I can hold it, I just put too much pressure. And if you give these a try, I mean, they essentially melt in your mouth. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, as soon as it hits your tongue, as soon as you take the first bite, it just really melts. I mean, it's basically shortbread, right? It's Syria and the Middle East take on shortbread cookies. We use clarified butter instead of regular butter, but otherwise it's more or less the same. Give these a shot, make them for your friends and family these holidays, and let me know what you think. Y'all know how this works. If you want to see more recipes every week, hit subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified. Sifted. Let's see, troubleshooting. If your dough is very like cracked and craggly like this, maybe, yeah, like let's say it's cracked and craggly like this, right? What do? This will happen if the dough hasn't been mixed enough, basically, and especially if you're doing it by hand. I've done this by hand before, and you end up with a dough that looks like this. It just came together, but it's really not incorporated. And if you pop it in the, you pop it in the fridge, and it's actually very cold, right? So right now it's malleable, right? But let's say it was really, really hard and it wasn't malleable. So what you do is, this is a troubleshooting part, you'd bring it together as much as you can, okay? And then apply pressure, as much pressure as you can. Now mine is malleable enough, right? So it's already coming together. But if yours is not coming together this way, it might split apart into other chunks. That's okay, bring them back together, okay? Bring them back together, and then apply more pressure. Basically, what you're doing is you're slightly melting some of that ghee, and you're incorporating the dough together until you get something that looks like this, right? This is the result right here that we're looking for. Okay, and you can see it's malleable. I can work with it, right? So I can take it and I can basically roll it out as though I was making, okay, here's the troubleshooting one. This is gonna be a lot of troubleshooting. If it does this right here, where it's falling apart as you roll it out, basically I need to work this dough a little bit more. Okay, working the dough is basically increasing the temperature just a little bit, okay, so that it adheres and forms together. So just kind of take it and press it, bring it back, press it, bring it back, turn it, and press it, okay? Now if I take this, okay, and I've just worked it, what, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Now if I try to roll it out, okay, you'll see it's a lot more cohesive, right? You're gonna take the palm of your hand and you're pretty much just gonna go down and roll forwards and then backwards a couple times until you get a shape like that, trying not to get over here where your fingers attach you, okay? If I go up here like this, I'll end up with indentations and I might flatten it out too much, okay? I've rolled it out. I can come in and just bring in the sides like that. That's a classic shape right there. And now another shape you can do is we'll make it into a classic S. So just take the sides and bring them down like this, okay? If you've ever had thumbprint cookies, you can also do this into a thumbprint kind of shape. So you just come like this and you can press with your thumb like that. Don't use measuring cups to try to do this. It's not gonna work. I would highly recommend you use a digital scale. These are fairly cheap. Anytime you wanna do baking, you really wanna go with mass, not volume measurements. Volume's just gonna be inaccurate, right? How hard you pack the sugar into the measuring cup will drastically change the amount of sugar in the recipe by anywhere from 10 to 20% either way. So if I give you the cup measurements, I make no guarantees on what the end result is gonna be. But if I give you grams, then I can say, hey, use this amount of flour, use this, and so on and so on and so forth. And I can say, hey, it should turn out exactly how mine turned out. Get yourself a scale.